What is Bluebook citation format? I'm Kevin Kneupper. I'm an attorney at Kneupper & Covey, and I want to explain to y'all today a little bit about a system that attorneys use pretty much every day, something that is drilled into you in law school, and something that if you want to be a law student, you for sure should try to learn in law school, forwards and backwards. If you're not a lawyer and you're watching videos like the ones I make where you see a lot of legal documents, you'll see what are called cases referred to. I'm going to explain to you what you're looking at in those documents that I'm showing. And also, if you read a legal brief, if you see a legal document, what does it mean and how can you go find the case if you actually want to read it? Because you today, it's actually very easy for someone to find most of these legal cases online. Cases are just judicial opinions. We call them cases, but the case really is the lawsuit. But when lawyers say, oh, there's a case that says this, or I was reading this case, they're usually talking about an opinion written by a judge about a case. So what is this blue book that I'm talking about? It's not really the book that's up in the other side. That side. It's not really that book that this AI generated image is holding. It's actually like it's this thing. So this is the blue book. This is my blue book from 20 years ago when I went to law school, and you can see it says a uniform system of citation. And this thing is a giant, like, see if you can see any of this. There's page upon page. It's not, the camera green screen is not very good at showing it, but pages upon pages of pages, 400 in mine, about how to refer to, or what's called cite, different types of documents that you might run into in the legal field whenever a judge is writing an opinion, whenever you're writing a legal brief or legal document. And citations are just sort of ways to describe a document in a little short way according to a uniform sort of system that lets other people go find it and know basic information about it. And so the blue book that I have is something like, when you look at these things, it's sort of spiral bound, so you can like go take pages out of it if you want to. You can pick out particular ones. It's designed to be used to practice this stuff. The one I have is a few editions out of date. Who makes this thing? So this is something that's been around for I think since the 1920s. And so it was created by a group of law reviews. What is a law review? That is something very important if you're going to go to law school and if you just want to kind of know how the law works or whatever. So when you go to law school, people will start talking about these law reviews. Law reviews, law reviews. What are they? They are kind of academic journals for lawyers. And so whenever a lawyer or a law professor wants to go publish an article about something, they may do studies. They may just like write these kind of papers that are theoretical arguments about what the law should be or what it is, or tell people what's happening. They're all kind of like research, essentially. The people who actually do the work to edit those and publish them are law students. The law professors have to go actually apply to the law students at different schools, not their own, to go see if they'll publish them in a journal or a law review. And sometimes those terms are used interchangeably. Either one is basically the same thing. Every school will have one law review, which is kind of called when they just use that phrase, just law review. It generally means the top journal, the top ranked one. So I went to the University of Texas. They have the Texas Law Review. They also had, I think maybe like 30 different journals for different topics. My first year I was on Sports and Entertainment Law Journal, I think it was. I kind of helped them out and volunteered for it. Got a little resume line. The actual law review is one where if you get a chance to do that in law school, absolutely do that. It is competitive to get on the top one. Different numbers of people get on at different schools. They can look at your grades. They can make you write essays, or in what's called a write-on process. So people who maybe don't have good grades can go apply by writing an essay. Sometimes it's a mix, like your grades plus I think that's how ours was your grades plus like your written kind of test essay, I guess, to see your legal reasoning, your legal talent, or whatever. And if you get on the best one, it's also at most schools is a little more like kind of a boot camp type thing. And so it looks real good on your resume, not just that you got on it, but that the thing that you learn when you're doing it is this citation format. So you're sitting around editing these articles written by law professors and just going through them over and over, every line, every bit, trying to find any error you can find, because their goal is like perfection in publishing. And that is very helpful for your actual job, just because it sort of drills into you this citation format, which at 400 pages is very complex. So this group of these law reviews in the 1920s got together. It's 5 of like the top schools, like Yale, Harvard, University of Pennsylvania, Columbia. I think there's one other, but they're all like kind of the 5 best in the 5 best, maybe like in the top, 7 or 8. I don't know where the rankings are today, but they throughout the years have been in the top 10 law schools or so. And these kind of best law students at the best law reviews at the best law schools over time created this real complex system that tells everyone with this book, how do you how do you actually express your like what case am I referring to if I'm talking about something in a brief? And it's a little more easy to understand this when you look at specific examples. So I'm going to show you a legal brief. I'm doing all these. If you haven't seen any of my videos, they're all, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are like celebrity cases where I could do deep dives onto like the actual legal documents and what's happening in the case. And so I'll show you one. There's Alex Jones, this sort of internet celebrity guy who's getting sued into oblivion right now. I had done a video on him and have some briefs that are filed in his case, and so I'll just show you an example out of that, which shows you kind of generally how a few things are cited. That's what they call it, cited in a legal brief. Okay, so you can see this document is what's called a legal brief. It is a written argument submitted to a court asking it to do something. In this case, it's from the Alex Jones lawsuit in Texas. And it is some attorneys on who are suing Alex Jones have tried to sanction, which is punish the attorneys who represent Alex Jones. And so I want to show you a specific page in this so you can see what, like, if you're watching some videos I make or you're kind of wondering, like, what is all this stuff we're looking at? I'm going to pick a specific page here that'll give us 2 or maybe 3 interesting examples. So look at this here. I'm going to highlight it. This says, Burbage versus Burbage, which probably means some family members were suing each other when you see 2 last names on either side of it. 447 SW3D, we would say 3rd, or Southwest 3rd. If I'm actually reading this as a lawyer, I would say 447 Southwest 3rd, 249, 255-58, parentheses, text.2014, close parentheses. And you'll see that this follows a statement here where they say, the Texas Rules of Civil Procedure make clear that, quote, any complaint as to a question, definition, or instruction on account of any defect, omission, or fault in pleading is waived unless specifically included in the objections. And then after that sentence in the legal brief, you have this string, and we actually call it a string citation because it has more than one. You have 2 different things that are being pointed to by the court, or pointed to by the lawyers for the court. So whenever you make a statement in a legal brief, and definitely a quote, so this is a quote, you have to follow certain rules in terms of how do you present that quote to the court so that it knows where it came from and knows it's accurate. Because it's important to be accurate and to tell the court about like any changes in the quote or whatever. This one is interesting just from a high level. I'm not going to walk through every single rule, everything that happens, but I'll show you some of the things that attorneys do and what the system generally is. So you can see they put brackets here at the beginning. That means that they changed what's in the brackets. So the brackets went from a uppercase in the original to a lowercase. That's just to tell the judge if you make any kind of change, you have to have some indicator. Brackets are one way to do it. If you omit something, so if, like, let's say they wanted to cut out something at the end, they wanted to stop the quote right here, because that's the full sentence. You could put, after defect, instead of a comma, you'd put 4 periods, which would say ... The first 3 periods are saying I omitted something here, and the last period is this period that you are not omitting at the end of the sentence. You wanted to do it in the middle, so you're omitting these 3 things to make it the sentence defect is waived. You just do 3 periods at the end of defect. That's just one of the ways that you do these things when you're citing. Now they're quoting rather. Now you're citing. Where did this come from? Tex R Civ P 274. That is an abbreviation. It is the same thing that the Bluebook would follow. It is designed to show the court what you're saying, which is Texas Rules of Civil Procedure 274 is the number of the rule. So it tells the court, go look at the Texas Rules of Civil Procedure. And these abbreviations are used commonly for these words. So if you were going to cite the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, you would say Fed R, FD period R Civ P. 274 means that you just look at Rule 274. See also, what is that? That just says, okay, this is what I'm quoting right here, but also go look at this, because they'll tell you something else that's related to what I'm saying. And then you have a case. And cases are the things that are most commonly what attorneys will cite. Like I'd say the vast bulk of the things you see cited are this. The back of the Bluebook has stuff for like anything you can imagine. Romanian legal opinions. There's a whole section that's like every country's legal opinion and all the things that they have there and all their courts and how you talk about them. This one is a simple one. It's from the Southwest Third. So what they'll have is these numbers. This number tells you the name of the case. It is abbreviated to have the parties' last names. They will do different abbreviations. Like you can see, you abbreviate corp down here in this other citation to corp, or that's corporation. So you just put a period to cut down the length of it. But this number here will be what are called reporters. So if you've ever seen a legal commercial where the lawyers have those big books in the back and they all look the same and it looks real impressive. It's like, wow, that lawyer's reading all these books. They're not reading them. They're not ever reading them these days. They used to not read them, but use them as a reference, like an encyclopedia. Now it's all online. And I'm going to show you a little later how you can go look up this. I'll use a specific one, how you could go look it up if you want to read what this opinion said for some reason. But they still use the system from the books. So you would have 447 would be 447 Southwest Third 249, which tells you like the volume number. Like you go look at the book and it'll say 447, and then or this is the page number, it's 249. So the volume is 447. It is from the Southwest Third. So when they get up to like I think 1,000, they just switch to second, third, fourth, or whatever. I've only really seen them go up to third, and maybe there's some that's hit fourth. I don't know. But there's Southwest. The reason that they're able to not have 2,000 volumes is they split it into sort of regions. So you could have federal. There's a Fed. It would, in that case, if it's federal cases, it would say Fed third, Fed second, or not. They don't say Fed. They say F. And they do that for, I can't remember if I said F or Fed here, but it would be FRCP. And then that would be, so you pick up that book, or you used to pick up that book, and then you go find the page number 249. This first number is where the case starts. So the books inside them just have like legal opinions by judges in order, and you just keep going through the book. Then what lawyers always want to do and should always do is what's called a pinpoint citation. So you've told the judge, here's the first page that the opinion's on. But here, the thing I want you to look at is on these 3 pages, because some of these will be 60 pages long. So the judge needs to know, go look at these 3 pages. That's where you're going to find what I'm talking about. And then this here in parentheses tells you the court that made the decision. When it says Tex here, means the Texas Supreme Court. There's a whole system. So the U.S. Supreme Court has its own little version of this. It can that's a little slightly more complex to cite that one. So you would see different things, like they might say S.CT. Or they might say US for the reporters. Instead of Southwest, they'd say US. And for the U.S. Supreme Court, a lot of times they omit, I think the standard way is because you would say U.S. right here, you don't need to repeat it here. So you already know it's the Supreme Court. So you would just say 2014. But for state Supreme Court, you don't know that. And this has multiple states in the Southwest Reporter because that's regional. So you have to put which one it is. Then you have this parenthetical is what it's called. It's an explanation in parentheses. And so they're telling the judge here, here's what these pages say. And they have, there's a bunch of different things you could say: holding, citing, explaining, whatever. It's always some verb that says basically holding that. Holding party waives any objection to jury charge by failing to raise specific objection to proposed submission. So what this is saying to the judge is, look, if you go look at these 3 pages, this Burbage versus Burbage case, and here's how to find it. The Texas Supreme Court held that a party, if you get a jury charge, which is like the instructions to the jury, the judge is going to read to them. If you don't object when it's proposed, then you have waived your objection. You can't come back later and be like, oh, wait, here's this thing that happened. So that's how to read this whole thing for what it says. Anytime you're reading a legal brief, you'll have similar stuff that you see in it. I picked this brief in particular because it's in Texas. And there's something, Texas is not the only state that does this, but there are other states that have, I had to use not just the Blue Book, I had the Green Book. And somewhere I have it, I don't know where it is. I haven't used it since law school. I kind of just ignore it, and have done so without consequence. But in Texas, you're technically supposed to, and I will say the reason that can work is like nobody is really getting on you if you make minor mistakes in this. As a practicing attorney, if you are a law clerk working for a judge, they will get on you very much because you are, like the law review, supposed to be kind of perfect. But in practice, the judges do not sit there and check like minor mistakes. But Texas has the Green Book, which makes you do, like, because they have all these different districts, they for their appellate courts have little differences in what you do. You have this dash, this Houston that tells you which cities the court's out of, which district. It's pretty big states. They got all kind of different random courts. And so that is a slightly different system being used by Texas. You can see here this petition denied is what that stands for. Petition denied is giving you, sometimes they will tell you little pieces of information that the judge really needs to know. There's some you're supposed to put in, like an example would be reversed on other grounds. So if a decision has been reversed on something unrelated to what you're talking about, like let's say this Burbage case says this, which is good law, but then then it couldn't be the Texas Supreme Court, but let's say some lower court, maybe in this case, it gets reversed by the Texas Supreme Court on something totally unrelated to what you're talking about. Then part of the opinion is good, but part is bad. And you're supposed to tell the court, hey, look, just so you know, part of this is not good anymore. Don't cite it, whatever. And that is something that they would get on you if you didn't sort of, I mean, not too much, but they want you to do that because that's sort of an honesty type thing, right? Like this opinion is reversed, and people make mistakes sometimes, but you're supposed to try to tell the court about that. And then they give dates again. But that's just a flag. Like there's different states. California, I think, has specifics that you're supposed to follow for their courts that look a little different than the Bluebook ones. You may notice this looks very different from this. Why is that? That is because as we've gone electronic, a lot of the cases, you'll see this WL. What is that telling you? There are two big electronic databases of legal opinions that lawyers use. There's Westlaw, which is what this stands for, and there's LexisNexis. Those are the modern replacement for these books. We still use the numbers from the books, but if the case is not published in the books, because some of these opinions are law that can be cited to courts, but are not actually published in the reporters. So those cases are all going to be on Lexis and Westlaw, on both of them. The attorneys will pick one or the other, whichever they like better for the service. They're kind of just search engines, essentially. They're like a more complex Google, but only for like legal stuff, or they may have news articles or whatever you pay for. Lawyers will use it for the legal articles and maybe law review articles and stuff like that. Journalists sometimes use Lexis for news articles, for example. But so this tells you the case was from 2018, which you can see that. I am citing to Westlaw because that's what I use. And here, if you paste this into Westlaw, this case will come up. And this is just a number Westlaw makes. Lexis has a very similar looking system. And when you're citing Westlaw instead of the reporter, they use stars for the page number. So they always are just going to start at 1 because it's not like a real book. There's no, you don't start at 249. You just have a book or have an electronic page number, and then they will number the pages. So they will have like a page 17. And if you were going to cite that, then you would start, at star 17 or whatever. So those are how these are like the general, what the citations look like. And now I'm going to take this Burbage case and I'm going to show you how, let's say you see a legal brief. You see one it's in one of my videos, or you're a law student, you want to go find one of these. How do you actually go find that opinion for free if you don't have the money? Like those Lexis and Westlaw are very expensive. That's why mostly only lawyers have it, because you pay for it through your law firm from your cases. So what if I want to go find Burbage versus Burbage? So let me go open up a little Google tab and show you how to do that. Okay, so here's how you can find these things for free if you ever get interested in actually going and like doing legal research yourself, finding a case, whatever. There's, just being interested in this, you can go. There's many reasons you might want to do that. Journalists would want to do this, all this stuff. So I'm at Google. You type in Google Scholar. Okay, Google Scholar is Google's, they say it here, a simple way to broadly search for scholarly literature. But in addition to literature, they have articles, but they also have case law. So people who are doing, academic research do use this. But if you want to read a court decision, you can do this. Now you can pick which court you want. Let me do this and see if I can go back. But you can select court. So let's say you're doing. Let's say you don't know what case you want to look at. I'll actually do this in a minute. But you can see, like, you can pick wherever you want to research these cases from. If I know the case from the Bluebook citation format, I just copy pasted. If you go back, you'll see that's the same case from that we were looking at earlier. I copy pasted this part of the number in that citation, and I push enter. And this, oh wait, no, I didn't put case law. Sorry, no, I did. This literally worked 2 seconds ago. So let's see. I have case law on. I'm typing this in. Now I think I was searching articles on accident. So now it goes Burbage versus Burbage, and you can see they say it's Texas Supreme Court. And then you can pull it up, and you can go read the whole thing. And this is a legal opinion, and we won't go into all the details, but you can see that you are literally just reading the legal opinion, and these are footnotes at the bottom from the opinion. So you can take those numbers and find whatever you want to read. If you're ever doing this, if you're one of these true crime people doing amateur sleuthing through court records, that's the way to go find what they're talking about. If you have just legal interest, if you're making your own YouTube videos, you can do it that way. Now let's go back here and say I want to search the case law. So let's pick just like a random, I don't even know what some of these are. Border tax appeals. I think that's for like if your taxes are, you're trying to like appeal some IRS decision. Let's just say like Delaware. Delaware is where all the corporation, there's a lot of important corporation law out of there. And you can see like some of these federal ones. This is federal, this is state. These are all the state things which are organized a little differently depending on how the state organizes itself. Like you can see New York, they call their Supreme Court the Court of Appeals, so you don't actually see a Supreme Court. New Mexico has Supreme Court and Court of Appeals. That's the traditional way to organize things, which is you have lower courts of appeals, then you have the Supreme Court. So you can say, I don't want to read a Supreme Court case, I want to read the lower ones. There's more of those, you're more likely to find stuff. In Nevada, apparently you can't search the appellate courts. Some of them call them, like Delaware calls them chancery courts, superior courts. So they're different names, but they're the same general. Lower, then go higher, then go to the top one. So let's go look at the Delaware federal cases. They're organized by circuit. Circuit is just groupings of states. We have 1, 2, 3, down to the 11th, it should be. DC Circuit is a circuit that has District of Columbia, and then some. That's kind of its own thing because it has the government there. Federal Circuit does like patent cases, some other cases that don't go to any of these other circuits. And so let's try a Third Circuit. So I picked them. Now I can just enter anything I want to learn about. So I could do like, you're not going to find this Texas citation because it's not there. But let's say you're doing legal research. You want to know like let's say defamation. So we're talking about Alex Jones, defamation, punitive damages. I'm just trying to find out like, so if someone gets sued in Delaware, what kind of punitive damages can you get on a defamation claim? And then it just starts popping up opinions that use those terms and trying to find like what they are. So I just kind of start reading the little blurbs and you're like, oh, let's see what this said. Let's go down here and find it where it is, but I can just do a find. Damages. Yeah, so it's talking about something, an amount in controversy requirement, which is like how much do you have to get into certain courts. And they're basically saying like, do the punitive damages count for that? For federal court, and some, so the court can include the punitive damages in the amount. You see the $75,000 to get into federal court under this one particular. There's a way you can get into federal court if the people on different sides are from different states, and the amount that the plaintiff is suing over is more than $75,000. So this case is about do you count the punitive damages? And it says yes, you do. Unless the punitive damages are patently frivolous, like the attorney just made them up and said, oh, yeah, sure, punitives. I mean, it's a random thing that pops up. Like, so it's not what I was looking for. So if I was doing legal research, I'd be like, no, that's not I don't want that one. I'm trying to find out like something else. You can see this goes to just another one. And so you just read through all these cases, and that's how you find them. That's how you do legal research for free. If you're ever looking at a legal question or, for something that you're looking into or for whatever reason you want to do it, that would be how that you would find those cases. That is all very simplified version of what Bluebook citation format is. I'm not going to go through Romanian, whatever judicial council opinions or whatever they've got over there, but because you won't ever see them. But if you're just a layperson and you're kind of looking at the law for fun or for your own YouTube videos about something where you just touch on the law or whatever, or just interest, that's probably enough for you to go find stuff and understand what you're reading and what you're looking at, because those are the most common things that you'll see and need to go look at if you want to try to understand what the law is on a certain topic. If you want to be a lawyer, then when you go to law school, try to get on that law review. If you can't get on the main law review, do another one. Like, it really is worth going on and spend the time in it to go do some editing and take it seriously like it's practice, because it is practice. The point of doing them is not just check the resume box. It's to get a little bit of skill in knowing all these different things that you can encounter for citing and kind of drilling into yourself so you just can do what I was just doing, which is saying like, here's what this means, what this means, what this means. You got to know what all that means. You got to know what all those mean to be. Certainly, if you're going to be on the litigation side, you will use this every day. Every day you will be doing this for the rest of your career. So take it seriously, learn it. If you're going to be a lawyer, if you're just messing around, then have fun with it. And now you can go read legal cases. You can go search for stuff. If you have random legal questions, you don't have to wait for me to make a video about it or whoever to make a video about it. You can go answer for yourself what a legal question is and go read stuff. And it's real interesting. You can find all kind of crazy cases on searching around on the Google Case Law or Google Scholar. And yeah, and if you want to see more videos of like this, I do answer random general legal questions. I answer consumer legal questions, and I do lots of videos about lawsuits that are just fun or interesting for some reason. And you can hit the button to subscribe or go click on one of these other videos that's coming up that will, be about something hopefully that you want to see.